Good day, everyone. This is Pineleaf Needles, and welcome to DDO Players News, where we take a look at the latest news in DDO and here at DDO Players. And please welcome my co-host from Ravenloft, Draculetta.
Hey, everybody. Hope everybody's having a great evening so far.
So far, well, we'll see how it goes, because tonight we have with us the community manager for DDO, Cordovan.
Hey, thanks for having me here. It's great to be on DDO Players News. Love your podcast.
All right, thank you very much. So let us go into the game news, and we have a forum post here where someone was asking about, are the Forgotten Realms storylines dead?
No. Short answer.
Okay, next.
All right, that's it, yes.
No, it's true that, our next update is the classic take on the Temple of Elemental Evil. After that, we're planning to return to Shavaroth, which is based in Eberron. And then after that, we're planning to focus on the Veil of Twilight, which is also in Eberron. Both sections of the games that DDO players are well familiar with. And it's true that, basically this year our priorities have focused a little more on Eberron or Classic Adventures, but we still have a fourth update this year that we haven't really said too much about, and we're absolutely not done with Forgotten Realms. I mean, why would we be? As long as you guys want to play in there, we'll be making stuff in there. So, yeah.
And we do want to play in there. So
Yeah.
there. Okay, and since I have you on, I can actually ask you, how do you pronounce his name? Is it Severlin or Severlin?
I've screwed that up myself on live interviews. Let me try to think what the exact pronunciation is. Severlin.
Okay, because I've been saying it wrong. But anyway,
Or you can also just say Sev.
Sev, hey,
That's
there we
what we
go.
like to do.
There we go. I like that. From now on, he will be called Sev on here.
See, yes, but I'm still going to say several, and as if we were on Blake 7, I don't know if you're familiar with Blake 7, Eddie.
No, sorry.
Oh, you don't remember? Okay, you've never heard of that particular. That's one of those classic BBC science fiction series.
Oh, which one?
Blake 7.
Huh? No, I don't think so. Sorry.
And
Okay.
I have to add here that in the chat, DDO cast says that you just call him boss.
That's sort of true. Yeah. Nah, I usually call him Sev.
Yeah, he did respond to this thread and pretty much mirrored what you just said. He said, and then also in that thread they asked, you guys were going to go to the desert of Anarok, and that got pushed off. And Seb said there was a couple reasons for that. Player excitement seemed really high for classic modules, and they had been talking about doing classic modules for a while, and the time was right to finally do the Temple of Elemental Evil.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I mean, really, you can sort of follow the timeline on Anarok, from really the producer before Sev and onward, and it really just kind of came down to, we put together a calendar, we try to do the best stuff we can, when we can, and for whatever reason, just various factors, Anarok just kind of kept getting pushed out just due to various reasons, and then eventually it got to the point where, like, well, I don't know, we want to do Temple, we want to do Shavaroth, we want to do Veil, we want to do this, we want to do that, and we just haven't gotten to it yet. So, never say never on that. It could very well be that our team here will get a bug to work on Anarok and do some stuff, but it may also be that we don't. So it's kind of hard to say what the future of Anarok is as a particular sort of pack. But as Forgotten Realms, absolutely we're not done with Forgotten Realms. And who knows? Maybe I'm totally wrong. Maybe in like a year, 2 years from now, we're going to have a big Anarok thing. But at least today, as of the time of this writing, we kind of are not saying never on Anarok, but it just isn't on our immediate priority list. So,
Anything else on this matter you wish to discuss?
Nope, that's pretty much what I wanted to bring up on that thread. That was really the only interesting thread that I've seen this week. So,
all right, then let's go into DDO Chronicle, issue number 135, where we see a throne room. What's up?
Oh, yeah? I guess I need to look at issue 1.
He's like, I don't remember what picture I put in there.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, correct. Okay, yeah. That's from Palace of Stone. Yeah, when you first go into the altar, where the Lord of Stone sort of directs you to visit his you respond to his invitation. You kind of go down a hallway and go into his big throne room, and there he is.
Oh, what level is that?
That would be, it's one of our, that was with the most recent Zoriat pack, so that would be in the upper teens and then Epic.
Yes.
So level, 7? I'm going off the top of my head here. 17 and 28? Is that right?
So
26?
levels we haven't reached yet.
Yeah. Okay.
That's right. We're just newbies.
Yeah. Oh, you'll dig it. If you haven't run the Zoriat stuff, you can start. What level are you at, though?
Our highest is 13, 12, okay. 12 and 13, around in there.
Okay. Yeah, you can start getting started in there. Yeah, maybe not that one in particular, but you could do the other, the first sort of delirium and then acute delirium for sure.
In the Chronicle this week, there was a couple things in the community spotlight. Looks like there's going to be the 6th annual Halfling Summer Games, and that is being organized by Savell, I guess.
Savella, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know, the Halfling Summer Games are something that has been going on every year for 6 years now. Well, this will be the 6th year. And basically, you got to be a Halfling, and that's about it. It's essentially a raid schedule that goes on all summer long. And people who get into it, they show up with their best Halfling and just have these, raid groups full of Halflings sort of going through the raids. So if that sounds cool to you, you should really want to be a part of this, because the Halfling Summer Games, like I say, they've been around for quite a while on Kyber, and it's really awesome. And it looks like all raids are on Friday night around 9 o'clock Eastern.
All right. Right around when I'm in the middle of recording a podcast. Okay.
Sure.
Well, you don't have a Halfling, so you couldn't do it. So.
Well, I've got plenty of Halflings. They're probably not as high as level as the other ones I've got, but I have a couple of Halflings.
I did not know you had a hat. See, I'm learning something new.
Sure, I've got a Halfling or two in my list somewhere. Also,
a thread that I particularly found some interest in for obvious reasons. Seiki, take a look at the Pale Master Shroud of the Vampire form. And, nobody understands why I found interest in that at all. But so, yeah, and I just started a Pale Master, so I read that thread, so check that out if you want to learn more about that. And really, for the Chronicle, that's about it. Of course, there was some fan site news, as always. DDO Cast had a Temple of Elemental Evil / Ask the Devs roundtable, which Cordovan happened to be on as well. If you haven't watched or listened to that, you should check that out. It was pretty informative.
I do want to apologize for some of the bad audio there. I'm an audio nerd, so I don't like hearing scratchy audio, and I don't like being responsible for producing scratchy audio. And we had some scratchy audio in there. It ended up being overdriven a little bit. So hopefully, but it's not unlistenable. It's just a little obnoxious. So hopefully you can deal with that. I have a hard time with that. But we did our best. We rolled with it. So, yeah.
And that is about it for the Chronicle this week.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And therefore, let us head into our store sales. And what's on sale this week?
The free sample of the week is a long-lasting Bear's Stamina Potion. You will get a stack of 5 of those when you use the coupon code MORECON. MORECON. Once again, that code is 1 per account. 20% off Astral Shards, Guild Renown Elixirs, Guild Charters, and the Guild Airship Beacon. And also through April 5th, it is what they are calling the Champion Hunter Week. So you go out, kill some champions, get the mysterious remnants, and there is new rewards available from the vendor for those remnants.
Cloaks and Bracers. They both have the same properties on them, but we wanted to give you a choice as to which, where you slotted it. And it's from people seem to be responding pretty well to it. They think they're pretty good looking cloaks, and they actually go up by levels too. You can just craft, whichever one you want, but I believe they start at around level 7, right? I think. I'm getting this off the top of my head, but they go all the way up. So we have something for everyone there, and that'll be through April 5th. Being shut off on the morning of April 6th.
All right. Because sometimes there is confusion on that. I know sometimes where Lotro used to have a bad habit of listing their ending dates as the date that they're shutting it down in the morning. And
yeah, that happens. That's actually part of why when we do, like, say, advertising, say, on newsletters or calendars or things like that, we like to do through the last full day of the event, even though typically these events are shut off the morning after. And there was a couple of reasons for that. One of them is to prevent exactly what you just said. The other reason is that, we are we have a worldwide audience. And so you've got to find some way to if it's really shut off at 9 a.m. Eastern on the one day, that's technically the day before for some other folks and, whatever. It gets complicated. So the best way we found to do it is just go advertise through the last full day of the event, cover just about everybody, and there you are.
Right, because those people in Hawaii want to make sure that they
right.
Don't get the day wrong. All right, then. Let's go into our site news. And the only site news we have this week is a picture of an owlbear.
That's right, an angry owlbear that's trying to kill me.
Ooh, why is he trying to kill you?
Owlbears are known to do that. Yes, that is our screenshot of the week. If you have some screenshots that you're particularly proud of and you would like us to feature them on our website, you can email us at podcast@ddoplayers.com, podcast@ddoplayers.com. And I do have enough listener screenshots to go for the next about 3 weeks. So if you send one in and you don't see it, hang in there, you'll get it, because I post them in the order that I receive them. So thanks to everybody that have been submitting them, and you should see yours on the site soon. And that post goes up every Saturday morning at 10 a.m.
All right, then. Then let's go into our site news. Our News Beyond DDO, where Sword Coast Legends, where they showed off Dungeon Master mode.
Yes, it's been a while since we talked about Sword Coast Legends, because there hasn't been a lot of news coming out of that. It's still in development, and it looks like it's going pretty good. The game studio that is releasing it, Endspace, did release a new video, and in the video they're showing a party of 4 going through an adventure, and they're showing you how the DM mode works for it. The DM is basically making it very hard for the players to finish the quest. Their quest was they were to slay an Ashen Priest, and the Dungeon Master does not want that to happen, so he's throwing all sorts of traps and monsters and everything down at the party. So you can go ahead and watch this video and see how it works. I'm more excited about this game now than I was before, after watching how DM mode works, because I'm just thinking about how I'm going to kill people that are playing with me.
Okay,
that evil DM side of me, just came out in full force when I watched this video.
Very well. Now let's head into a rather unusual series of letters here that were issued by GenCon concerning a recent incident in the state of Indiana.
Yes, and I started out all the posts about this stating that normally on DDO Players we don't ever report on anything political, but this kinda is a pretty big news story, and it's really affecting the gaming community with GenCon, of course, being held in Indy. And GenCon, it started out, there is a little backstory on it. There was a state bill that was State Bill 101 that went through the State House of Indiana, and it passed through the State House, and it went to Governor Mike Pence for him to sign. And basically, the State Bill 101 is also known as the Religious Freedom Act. And what it was intended to be was for a shop owner or a wedding planner or something of that lines, that if you did not agree something on a religious grounds to a customer, you could refuse service to that customer based on your religious grounds, and you had that legal right to do so, is how the law started out. But and I'm not even sure how to explain what happened with this. The law is not very clear. So GenCon took offense to the way the law was written, and they wrote a letter to Governor Pence that stated, last year GenCon hosted more than 56,000 attendees from more than 40 different countries and all 50 states. GenCon proudly welcomes a diverse attendee base made up of different ethnicities, cultures, beliefs, sexual orientation, gender identities, abilities, and socioeconomic background. We are happy to provide an environment that will be welcome to all and a wide-ranging diversity of our attendees. They were urging Governor Pence not to sign this bill because they felt the legislation that could allow for the refusal of service or discrimination against an attendee will have a direct negative impact on the state's economy and GenCon. So basically what happened is the governor signed the State Bill 101, which then it became the Indiana Religious Freedom Act, and GenCon then wrote a follow-up letter that said, GenCon has enjoyed many years of successful partnership with the local Indianapolis business community, and we are grateful for the many positive responses to our letter. Visit Indy, the Indiana Chamber of Commerce, numerous local businesses, and the Indianapolis Mayor Greg Ballard himself has all spoken against the passage of SB 101, and it is clear that Indianapolis business community is not in favor of this state legislation. And then he goes on to say that GenCon does have a contract that runs with the city of Indianapolis through 2012. So GenCon will stay in Indianapolis at least
2020.
Or 2020. I'm sorry. I did say 2012. Sorry. Yes, 2020. So GenCon is in Indy until 2020. They are now just starting to look at the future of GenCon. He did state that they usually do their contracts for 5 years at a time, and they are just now to the point where they're going to start looking at if they want to renew that contract with Indianapolis or not. So this might weigh into that, but I guess time will tell. So Governor Pence, then the third letter in this saga. Is everybody with me so far? The governor did call the CEO and owner of GenCon, which is Adrian Stewart, called him today, as a matter of fact, and I guess they had a nice, pleasant phone conversation. And Stewart said GenCon 2015 is going to be held as planned at the Indiana Convention Center on July 30th through August 2nd. GenCon staff are working in partnership with the city of Indianapolis, local businesses, Visit Indy, and other grassroots organizations to ensure the fair and safe treatment during this year's show. We support Indianapolis Mayor Billard's plan to sign an executive order requiring businesses adherence to the Indianapolis Human Rights Ordinance, which will identify sexual orientation and gender identity as a protected class. And he did end the letter with, GenCon's growth in Indianapolis has been tremendous. Our success is due to part to the Hoosier hospitality and the acceptance of the Indy community. If you want to see GenCon continue to be hosted in Indianapolis, we ask that you please direct your voices towards the General Assembly and to Governor Pence. Speak up and tell them to either amend or repeal the RFRA.
On top of that as well, it looks like Indianapolis Mayor Greg Ballard, who, by the way, is a Republican for those who care about that kind of thing. And this was largely spearheaded by a Republican-led Senate, if I recall correctly.
Yes, correct.
Yep.
It was.
That he has signed an order basically saying that groups doing business with the city, which would include GenCon, must still abide by its Human Rights Ordinance, which bars discrimination on the basis of categories, and they did, while I was there even, include sexual orientation and gender identity in that Human Rights Ordinance. So what that means is if you want to do business with the city of Indianapolis, you must not discriminate based on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity. Now, what does that mean? It depends, because typically state law trumps local law, federal law trumps state law, right? For a few, with some exceptions, of course. But this is really the city trying to, I think, reach out to those who are concerned about this particular thing to say, hey, we're not going to let these things that you fear might happen for GenCon. I mean, that's my guess as to what's going on.
Yeah, that's kind of what I took from reading this whole letter. And I do have all these letters. They are posted up on the site. You can follow the show notes. To actual read, I just took excerpts out of the letters, but you can read the whole letter. Basically, what it boils down to is the law is not very clear. So there's a lot of people that are fearing, since it's not clear, this could be, used against people of, non-standard sexual orientations or gender identity, which the governor is saying the law is not for that, but the problem is the law is not clear about that. And that's where the big confusion lies.
Yeah, for those who maybe don't know, I was actually a reporter in Indianapolis for many years. I covered the State House for about, I guess it was from about 2000, somewhere 2001 to about sometime in 2008 when I moved to Minnesota. And so I actually covered the State House, and I covered most of these folks. Greg Ballard, and I was there for the O'Bannon administration, the Kernan administration, and the first term of the Daniels administration. I also knew Brian Bosma and David Long, who spoke on the Republicans on this issue. And I actually know the governor a little bit as well from when I covered him back when he was a state senator. So I have a bit of a history with Indiana politics where I really know a lot about what they've been doing. Not so much in recent years, but certainly in the 2000s. And I guess I would say that this is not the first time that the Indiana General Assembly has perhaps, I'm going to try very hard not to give it to be like totally not opinionated here, but it happens on both parties in the Indiana State House over the years where they have passed legislation not because they actually believe that it's going to have a demonstrated impact on anything, but because they're reacting to something and they want to use it for the elections. And it's not just the Republicans doing this. Both sides, all sides have done this quite a bit in Indiana politics over the years. And they did it with daylight saving time. They did it with the RCA Dome, Lucas Oil Stadium, and all sorts of stuff that have happened over the years. So whether or not this law falls into that category, certainly a lot of the pundits on TV are saying this is all about, Mike Pence in 2016. And it's also, maybe on the national front that's true, but on the state front, it's absolutely about the people who support that legislation wanting to be able to take that on the campaign trail in 2016. Because, the reality is if you think this law is going on in some other states and has typically been in reaction to the Hobby Lobby verdict that the Supreme Court issued last summer. And the Hobby Lobby verdict essentially said that a private company with a sort of religious foundation has the right to bar people, to not give its employees birth control. That was really what the core issue of the Hobby Lobby verdict was. And in the wake of that, it's not uncommon for lawmakers who maybe agree with the verdict or don't agree with the verdict. In this case, the Republicans typically agreed with the Supreme Court verdict to pass what they would call legislation that underscores that opinion. They don't need to do anything in order for the Supreme Court's ruling to stand. The Supreme Court rules, and people generally have to live with that, right? But what they'll do is if they side with maybe a Supreme Court decision or oppose a Supreme Court decision, they will pass, legislation that really is more about rhetoric than maybe action. I don't know that we have had an issue, at least I am not aware of any issues in Indiana where LGBT folks have been, turned away from religious sort of based like bakeries or whatever, And I'm also not aware of any outside of Hobby Lobby and I guess South Bend, Notre Dame, and that has really taken direct action as a result of the Supreme Court ruling. So what these guys are basically saying is, hey, we agree with that. We're going to put in to state law something that underscores the Supreme Court's ruling. Now, at the same time that this was going to the Supreme Court, we heard a lot of groups, including LGBT groups, sort of make that argument ahead of the Supreme Court argument. So this argument of sort of the religious freedom bills really dates back to the Hobby Lobby decision, and this is sort of a continuation of that debate. Because you're right. They were very careful, at least when speaking about the issue, to try to frame it sort of not a LGBT issue, but certainly it has become that due to the the events that have transpired since then and the fears that people are having. But the law itself does not directly say anywhere in it, businesses have the right to turn away gay people.
Right, exactly. And that's the problem. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say that, but it doesn't not say that either. So that's the problem. Right. It's like, so, then it's like open up to interpretation. And as I was doing a little bit of research on this, and as many of you, I don't know how many of you know that I actually live in Indiana. And this has been all over our news, of course, like the past week. This is basically all our news has been about. And there's actually 13 other states that have laws similar to this.
Or are debating laws.
Are debating, and then there's 2 that are in the process of debating them in their state houses right now. So Indiana is not the only one that has done something like this. We just apparently didn't do it right.
So, well, I mean, there would be critics who would argue that this was done deliberately, not as a way to perhaps bring it to the court. I mean, ultimately, it seems likely that this law is going to be challenged by somebody, and it's going to end up in the appellate courts, and then potentially all the way up to the Supreme Court, because this issue seems like one that may well end up there.
To bring it back to the gaming community, GenCon's going to be there till 2020. Mm-hmm. So, and because everybody was freaking out that, oh my God, GenCon's going to leave. Not until 2020 at least, and then as you had said earlier, it's probably going to be worked out, and they're going to work it out and change the law, repeal the law, and GenCon is probably going to stay because GenCon loves how Indy treats them. Indy loves GenCon, so I wouldn't worry too much at this point about GenCon leaving.
Well, and I think it also depends, the public reaction is really what ultimately matters here. And if GenCon believes what they want to believe and issues their statements based on that, right? But they also care very much, if they're worried that they're going to lose 10,000 visitors or say to GenCon because of this, then that's something they have to react to, right?
Right, and and like DDO Cast says in the chat room, they could leave before 2020. But then they would have to break the contracts, and I don't know, I'm not a legal expert by any means, so I don't know about how they would have to go about trying to break out of a contract and all of that.
It depends on whether or not there are clauses within the contract itself that specify it.
Yeah. Well, I happen to know, just because, again, I was a reporter at the time, that they were involved in the discussions initially with the expansion of the convention center, which was wrapped up into the demolition of the RCA
yes,
zone,
correct.
And the construction of Lucas Oil Stadium.
And
so part of the reason they expanded that convention center was for things like the FFA convention that they have every year and GenCon. Those were probably the 2 biggies that were brought up most frequently during that debate. And so it does, the city of Indianapolis and the state of Indiana do care about these big conventions, and we'll just kind of have to see what transpires as a result of that.
All
but
right.
anyway, I read the argument. I mean, long story short, I've actually read the contract, and but I couldn't. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not really at all qualified to give an opinion on it. So yeah.
So let's go into our questions and answers with Cordovan.
Sorry, you guys got the chance to get me to put on my old reporter hat again. Huh?
Yes.
And that was not planned, actually. I mean, I knew you were like a news reporter before, but I did not know that you worked at the Indiana State House. So it was kind of a happy coincidence that this was the week we had you on and this story broke. So.
Well, I've been following this story very closely, not only because it interests me in my personal life, but because of my old reporter ties and that, I'm always kind of curious to see what's been transpiring there.
But as Pine Leaf said, now for the fun, happy stuff.
Yeah.
Let's talk about DDO. That's what we're here for anyway, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right. So we did, I had been asking for questions on Twitter and website, and we did get some community questions, and anybody that's in chat right now, you can feel free to go ahead and put some questions in there, and we'll see how many of them you can answer for us.
Sure. That sounds great. Hit me with them. We're gonna answer everything.
Because I know there's stuff you can't answer, but...
Yep. Your character is going to die, and... No, wait a second.
Yeah. Which probably, knowing the temples, I'm sure that will happen several times.
Yes.
All right, we'll start out with one of our community questions, and this, I just had to include this one. A user by the name LiveMo wants to know bacon. Will we ever see bacon in the game?
Yes. Well, I mean, he quantified that. I believe he actually said something about an airship on there, too. And it's true that bacon is in airships right now. I also know, only because I caused some trouble on the Mania by doing it, that we have Dreamy Bacon in the game, and that's in the Jeets quest and the Inspired Quarter. So we do have, virtual bacon in a quest already. But it's true that we don't have just say bacon for sale in the taverns of that, and I don't know why that is. You'd think we would.
We need more bacon.
Yeah.
I keep on forgetting about the Inspired Quarter. I always forget to go back into the harbor in order to see those slightly higher level areas that are then there.
Mm-hmm. I love the Inspired Quarter. Yep.
Well, we need to do that, Pineleaf. And
you
then
need to grind out the solo quest for XP when you hit level 18. That's what you need to do.
Okay, duly noted. I will write that down. Starless70 in our chat room says, when is Update 25 going live?
April 7th.
Woot! There you go. So the temple will be on live servers April 7th then.
Yes, with the usual caveat that, or actually no, April 6th. April 6th. I was looking at the wrong month of my calendar.
All right. So it'll be a bit of an Easter egg then.
One might say it'll be here a week from today. But
that's amazing. That's awesome.
But again, the caveat is, we haven't actually put together our live build yet. It's got to go through QA and all that sort of thing. Something could come up, So possible things may switch by a day or two or something like that. But the goal is to get it out a week from today.
Awesome. That
right.
is
Good.
Awesome. And then speaking of the temple, I would like to know, is there going to be named loot as drops in the temple?
Yes. In addition to our crafted loot that you can get from running Temple of Elemental Evil, we do have named loot as well. You'll find that in, say, some of the rare encounters and really scattered throughout both, that entire adventure pack there. But yes, absolutely.
Okay, Gumsgang asks, will DDO be moving to the new data center and servers in New Jersey when Lotro makes the move to new data centers?
Interesting. I didn't know that that was real public knowledge on the Lotro side yet. I guess I haven't been paying attention.
Yeah, public knowledge.
Yeah.
The exec producer has been keeping us abreast of that.
Okay. I don't have a good answer for you right now, unfortunately. I think, we're still doing some analysis on it. It's certainly possible that it'll happen. But I don't know that we have immediate plans to do it. I think Lotro is going to go first, frankly. And I don't really quite know where we're all settled on DDO yet. But it's possible, yeah.
Okay, and Update 25, of course, is free to VIP. Mm-hmm. Is there any idea on what the cost will be in the DDO store for free-to-play or premium players?
I don't have an exact cost for you, but I have an approximate cost for you. And the approximate cost is about what the Haunted Halls of Evening Star is. And that is, again, off the top of my head, it's a little dangerous. Is it $5.95? Is that correct? So something around that range,
DDO Central in the chat is saying 650 turbine plays.
650? Okay. Yeah, so somewhere around that range.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. And DDO Dude would like to know, over the years that you yourself have played DDO, what update was the biggest game changer for you, and what is your favorite update? That's a tough question.
What a big question.
Yeah, I could say that is a hard question.
The biggest update for me and my favorite update. So, here's the trick to that question is that what was the biggest update for me? Or is they asking for the biggest update for the DDO community?
It sounded like the way the question was worded, it was for you.
Okay. So for me, the biggest update would have been... Geez, that's a tough one. I'm going to say... on the one hand, I'm going to say Veil of Twilight and the Shroud. It was a really momentous adventure, series of quests. The debut of Green Steel was huge. Personally, I happen to have been a Mournlander during that period, so that was the first time I got to see a raid in the Mournlands program before, non-Mournlanders got to see it, so I got to actually be one of the very first people in the Shroud outside of the dev environment, although I suppose Mournlands technically is part of the dev environment, and or was at the time. So maybe it would have to be that. It might have to be that. I can't remember which mod that was at the time now. But again, you might argue free-to-play, right? Because free-to-play was huge. But again, I don't know that it was necessarily huge for me personally, because I was already playing the game so much and working here and everything at the time. So I think for me, it might be Veil of Twilight. My favorite adventure pack is... Man, that's a tough one. I might say my favorite adventure pack, personally, just personal opinion here, might be the Harbinger of Madness. I really like the Missing. I really like in the Flesh. I really just like the loot in there. I think it's interesting. I really, really enjoy that. And also, I'm biased because I really got the chance. That was one of the first times, since being hired at Turbine in 2010, that I got the chance to actually do some writing that showed up in the game. And
Oh, wow, really?
And that was the missing quest. So those journals in there, I actually took a lead role in writing those. You know, it was a group effort because a whole bunch of people edited it and things like that. But I sort of took a lead role on doing the bulk of the writing for that. So for me personally, that is another reason that may be my favorite.
And then a follow-up to that, Patrick from DDO Cast in the chat wants to know, what is your most embarrassing death?
I have died so many times, I couldn't possibly tell you what my most embarrassing was. I mean, how do you pick from a field of thousands, you know? I don't know. My most embarrassing death probably happened in the live stream. It was fairly recently. I died in a dumb trap in the harbor, and that was just a couple weeks ago. That was really bad. Because I've run that quest a million times, and I just wasn't paying attention to where I was, and boom, I walked right into a acid trap that just walked around. And so that was pretty bad. That might be one of the worst.
And of course you were live streaming it at the time too, right?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. So yeah, it probably maybe was something like that.
Okay. What dungeon was it? You said in the harbor.
Yeah, I think DDO Central has it right. It was Haberdashers. No, I didn't get lost in Haberdashers. What are you talking about? Not that I remember. Did I? Did I really?
I think you're getting called out in the chat.
Well, let me just say, when you're trying to multitask and you're doing the live stream and you're watching the chat and you're making sure your stream's there and you're, trying to do field questions all the time and make sure you give decent answers and all that other stuff, sometimes where you are in the game tends to take a little bit of a back seat. And so sometimes I'll be just like running around in the middle of my stream and I'll be like, oh yeah, right, I was going to not die in that trap, right? Okay. Well, I guess that's not going to happen. So, okay, you can't get lost in Haberdashers. There you go. I have died in the tutorial, the original 2006 tutorial. There you go. That's a pretty bad one.
Ooh, that's
Although I was not alone in that. That was one of the reasons it's the old tutorial.
I was about to say, I take it that changed because you can't die now.
Yeah,
right.
I can't. I'm trying to remember. It's been a long time since I did the original. Obviously, it's been a long time since I did the original tutorial, so I don't remember what it was.
It was actually Euphonia. It was the introduction to Euphonia, and you went. It was really a real sort of bare bones. I mean, it was cool, but it was really just meant to show you how to move and walk and click on and stuff. And so it was just you were kind of going down a long hallway, picking up gems and stuff, and then I think you fought a scorpion at one point. You had a little interaction with an NPC, and it took about 5 minutes or so. And then after that, you would get ported to what is now the inspired quarters section of the harbor, Hayton's Rest, right? And then there used to be like 3 little mini quests, depending on the class you played, which taught you how to cast if you were a caster. It taught you how to like do roguey stuff if you were a rogue, and it taught you how to fight if you were a fighter. And so depending on which class you were, you'd go in there and do a second little mini quest. Then after that, you'd sort of go into the harbor and do the waterworks and all that. There was no Korthos Island at the time, so. Yeah,
I do remember there not being a Korthos Island. In fact, one memory I had was when the then executive producer, about a few months after I did my free trial on DDO, was talking about the upcoming changes and showing the beginning, what's now the new player experience. We're going up towards the grotto with Jeets and bashing all those crates and all that stuff. And so I was watching this. These were the plans for it. And then for a while, this was about a year and a half, I think, before free to play. So the thing was talked about, but you didn't hear anything else about it for another year and a half when it came out with free to play.
Oh, that's true. I remember that as well. There was a long, this was before I got hired at Turbine. I got hired in November of 2010. We went free to play in September of 2009. So I was in the middle of podcasting during that transition period, and I well remember the gap in time between sort of announcements there. So
another question about the new update is, what do you think, or what I guess I should say, does Turbine think the average time it's going to take for people to finish up the temple?
Oh, geez. I don't know that you can determine that.
Right.
Because you have such a wide spectrum of play styles and players, But I can give you some guidance, and that is that if you are a slower player in that you like to sort of take your time, maybe do some role-playing, you want to find every nook and cranny and corner. You want to completely, make the map visible. You want to just literally do everything you can do in one run. It's going to take you a while, several hours per dungeon at least. But if you're a Zerger and once you figure out sort of the way to go and all that sort of thing, I'm going to guess that it's not particularly out of scope for what your completion times would be on other longer quests. Because you're going to be able, there is sort of a more direct path to sort of get the quest done if you want to, and that's by design. But we also wanted to have a really large area where for those who wanted to explore, pick up some XP and like slayers and loot, crafting ingredients, you wouldn't have to run, say, that same core loop over and over and over and over. You could instead sort of spread out into the massiveness that is the Temple of Elemental Evil and really have a long experience there, or a shorter one, depending on what it is you want to do, right? I mean, you could pop in there, get some slayers, loot a few chests, and call it done. But I'm going to say on the long side, for the entire adventure pack, a lot. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if I hear 10 hours.
Okay.
But on the same time, once you know the quest and you're motivated, if you just want to do the critical path and all that sort of thing, I'm going to guess it's within the typical DDO time of half hour-ish or less, so per quest, right? So
once you know it.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's the tricky bit.
Yes.
Dante IL in the chat asks, does it really play that different at level 7 versus playing it at level 30?
Depends how many hit points you have. Yes, it does. I mean, all the mobs are certainly scaled. All the monsters and things you're going to fight are certainly scaled much higher for Epic. There are certain encounters and all that are sort of scaled for it. Is it a different story? No, not really. But yes, absolutely, you'll encounter different stuff and see different things in there. And I wouldn't suggest, actually, I don't think you could take a level 7 and 28 because you're going to have the epic gating. But you could do it at 28 and 7. So, speaking of getting things done quick.
Yeah. Zerg right through it, right?
Yeah.
This is a question that I thought of when I was running through it on Lamania. I noticed there is a new faction called the Gatekeepers. So, am I to assume that this means we might see other realms and maybe classic modules? This is the opening to do those, maybe?
It's almost like we need a favor page for classic modules.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, things can change there sometimes depending on sort of the development team's decision-making at the time, but absolutely that is the plan. We have a new kind of favor for the Temple of Elemental Evil, and we'll probably be using that favor source again.
Because honestly, that's the first thing I thought of when I saw that. And I'm like, this is the perfect way for them to start doing the other classic stuff, and that's the way that they can incorporate it where it would make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yep.
So, do they have any ideas yet on what maybe could be the next classic module?
Yes. Can't tell you though.
Oh, come on.
Sorry. No, I mean, I've given. I know this sounds a bit like a stock answer at this point, but it's true, and that is that we went through several weeks where we just sort of had everyone on the dev team write down what modules they liked best, what classic module they want. And it's just like you'd see on a forum thread. And we ended up with a list of just a large number of modules. And we went down the line saying, okay, let's look at this one. Let's look at this one. Let's look at this one. Now, not getting too deep into the process, but just kind of a brief overview. How would this translate? Would this translate? What would be the biggest challenges? What could we do? Why could we not do this one, for example? Or why should we do this one? And so we've put together a list of really kind of classic adventures that that's not to say any of them or all of them are even going to get into the game, but it's a list that we can sort of use to build off of when we want to make these decisions of what's going to be next. What's going to be next is going to be based on a whole bunch of things, including, what's going on in the Dungeons & Dragons world as a whole at the time. What do our licensors think? What do our players want? What do we want? All that kind of stuff. And eventually a new classic module is going to come out of that process. But in terms of which one, it's not like, have to go through this sort of culling down process every single time. We've done a lot of that work in terms of what do we want to see. And so the problem we have is the same one the players do, which is that list could be 50 long, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's, that kind of brings up a follow-up. I was going to ask how
I'm assuming you have to clear all this with Wizards.
Just like we do for everything. We go through our licensors and stuff.
If you would want to do, module X, they could tell you, no, we won't allow you to do that, or sure, you can go ahead and create that. Is that kind of how it works? Or?
It tends to be a little less judgmental than that. It tends to be a little more collaborative, like more a matter of, hey, we're thinking about maybe doing this. Does this fit with what you guys maybe have going on?
Okay.
Or, all that kind of stuff. What you're seeing here, with sort of them doing their elemental evil stuff as well.
Right.
So, there are times where to use an awful buzzword, there's like a certain synergy there, man. And so we try to sort of work through those processes like that. But at the same time, we make what we want to make, and so you can sure darn well bet that we have a list of modules that we want to do as soon as we can.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'd love to see that whiteboard, as it were.
Yeah. Well, the thing is you already know what it is, right? Because, put together what you think would be the top 30 modules that you'd want to see brought to DDO as a player, and I bet that's real similar to the list we got. So,
I'm sure. Yeah.
All right, are there any more questions?
Not right now. Looks like everybody's basically just now in the chat room now. Everybody's talking about just the mods they would want to see, and then some people are talking about they just like to see different dungeons, like one that's random each time you go in.
It's a question that's come up quite a bit over the years. One of the things that really sets DDO apart is the handcrafted nature of our adventures. DDO is not the kind of game, typically, where you're going to speak to an NPC and they say, kill 10x. And then you kill 10x and then go back and they say, all right, I need you to kill 20x. That's not really the kind of content we typically make very much. And so our adventures take a lot of work to put together, frankly, and there's a lot of truly handcrafted nature of them. And due to that process, it makes something like, well, I don't know, we just have a dungeon that is different every time you go into it. I think what you would find is you could do that, but what you would find is a more generic experience in some cases, Because you can't, if you're really going to truly be random in everything in a dungeon, then you're going to kind of have to deal with that factor of, well, then how does your story work? That kind of stuff.
Right, yeah.
And so, it's not to say that, we haven't had some randomness. In Temple of Elemental Evil, for example, we have a lot of random encounters and rare fights and things like that. And we have, dungeons which have some randomness in them as well, through either objectives or trap placement, things like that. But the concept of, say, clicking on a portal to enter a quest and have a new map, new everything every time, it just doesn't really fit into the way we develop our dungeons.
And DDO Central in the chat is asking, we have had 2 Forgotten Realms expansions. Has the dev team ever discussed an Eberron expansion the size of Menace of the Underdark? I'm going to say maybe then from your answer.
I'm going to, let me think about it. I just want to make sure I say this.
Right.
Let me preface this by saying we have no plans to release another expansion. But yes, we have discussed an Eberron expansion over the years. It's been some time ago, but absolutely we did. Yep.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yep.
Go into our week in DDO then.
Sure, and if anybody else has any other questions that's listening, go ahead and shoot them in the chat, and we will come back to them if we have any more.
And I will start with the week. Basically, I ran my level 13 Pure Rogue through some of the temple on the Mania. Pineleaf and I did that. We did record it. I was going to release it on the site, but I screwed up and I had my settings wrong, so the audio was horrible. So, yeah, that video will not be released because I tried to fix the audio and I couldn't even fix it. So.
Oh, boy. I know what to do when you have bad audio. And I once had a video a couple of weeks ago where I had accidentally muted a section of it, so I wound up decided, because I was a single person doing it, I was able to dub over it. But when you have multiple people interacting and stuff like that, no, you can't recreate that.
Yeah, well, you certainly know I've had my issues as well. But I'm picky, so I really do try my best to get the audio quality high. It pains me physically when I hear bad audio.
Yeah, I know what I did wrong though, so at least that's the good part. Then the only other thing I did in game is I got my level 4 wizard who was going to become my Pale Master. Just running through the harbor. I did Information is Key, The Miller's Debt, An Explosive Situation, and Home Sweet Sewer. And then I started the Bondry Cardamom questline. I did the Protect Bondry's Interest. And I got crazy, and I did that one on Elite, and I actually managed to do it at level 4 on Elite. So, which I was surprised, but so that's really basically all I did, and that wizard is basically the one I'm going to run through the temple with Pine Leaf. So I'm trying hard to get that to level 7, and now I know the date in which I have to get it by level 7 for. So.
I just want to reiterate April 6th,
or
not
6th.
7th.
Sorry,
6th.
Yeah. Oops.
Because I screwed it up by being very forceful in my wrong answer to start off with.
Yes.
Now I'm going to have people on the forum saying that I said the 7th, and I really mean the 6th.
That's
I was looking at the...
Yes, but Drac and I play on Wednesdays, so therefore he wants that to be up by the 7th, so because we'll be playing on the 8th, will be our first time playing together.
That's true.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's all good. And that's basically what I did. So, Pine Leaf, what did you do this week other than the temple?
Very well. Yes, right. We had our little time in the temple, and in addition to this, I was running my permadeath cleric. I first went through the Sharn Syndicate, where I did all the parts of the Sharn Syndicate. In Stand Your Ground, I think that's the first time I ever lost the brother. For some reason, I guess I was going through it on the assumption that since I was playing a cleric, I can heal these guys. I didn't realize they're not targetable for healing. I target one of them and I'm healing myself. And I didn't realize that in that quest.
Oh.
Because, I said they're NPCs. You're escorting them, right? You can heal them, right?
And now you know, Pine Leaf, and knowing is half the battle.
Is that general in this game, or
Usually you can heal them. Why were you not able to heal them? Which quest again?
It was Stand Your Ground, where you're trying to... The first one you do with the Sharn Syndicate, where you have these two people you're trying to keep alive.
Oh, yeah, I thought you could heal them.
Well,
I
target them. I was targeting the guy and hitting a heal spell, and maybe I was doing it wrong or something like that, because I've been known to do targets wrong, but I tried and every single time I got healed instead.
Huh. I'll have to actually go in there and see. I thought you could heal that NPC, but it's been a little while since I've actually tried doing it. I usually just kill stuff quick enough that I don't have to worry about it.
Well, that's the first time I was doing it as a cleric, so therefore I thought healing might be a good strategy. It was a bad strategy because I lost one brother, and the other one was at the slightest, and the one you have to keep alive was at the slightest sliver of life at the end of it. So it was I think it's the worst I've ever done on that quest.
Yeah. Oh.
Well, fortunately, I finished it. Then I did Dirty Laundry, the Fresco. The bookbinders actually didn't seem to be too bad with this character, despite the fact I had no trap saving ability or anything like that.
Really?
Repossession went fine, and Come Out and Slay, I reached level 5 at the end of that, which meant I was able to go in and into the halls of Chanticleer after that.
And I still have to say, Come Out and Slay is the most awesomest name ever for a quest.
It's a really good one.
Yeah. And after doing all that and finishing it all and saying, fine, I'm finished with this character, I got a letter saying, oh, you reached 100 favor with this character. Ooh, that's nice. I think that's the first one I'm doing on this permadeath one that actually hit 100 favor.
Nice.
All right. On my Temple Cleric, I reached level 4 and did Garrison's Missing Pack. Now that I know, though, I have to step things up a little bit to get 3 more levels by next week, so... What I'm doing is I'm going to put the permadeath characters on hiatus. I'm not going to be starting my next class, which I think will be the Druid, for another month until we finish all the temple stuff. So I'm going to be concentrating now on my temple characters for the next month instead.
Cool.
And finally, I did a run in Castle Ravenloft. I was running Escape the Tomb. So I think it's about the second or third time I've been running this one, and I actually managed to survive it, despite the fact that Strahd woke up on turn 6, because it was like, okay, first 2 turns fine, then it was white. Hello, sunset!
Now that's a board game, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. Is it sort of a board game with a book of scenarios? Is that how it works?
Yeah.
Is it a little bit like the game Nuns on the Run? Have you ever seen that? Where you've got sort of one person playing the baddie, and he's sort of taking his turn invisibly?
No, Castle Ravenloft is pure cooperative.
Okay.
Each player controls the monsters. Like, you go, and then the player goes for the monsters.
Okay.
And there are instructions on there on the tactic for the monster that tells you what the monster does. But if there's a choice as what to do with the monsters, that player makes the choice of what the monster does, as long as it is consistent with the tactics. So if there are two possible people they could attack, then the player will choose which one. And some people jokingly say it's whoever forgot to bring the pizza or something like that is the one who gets attacked. Or you might, but the general idea is that the game is written that the players, whenever they have a choice of what the monsters do, are going to make the choice that's most favorable for the players. So therefore, the game is balanced with that assumption.
And they have a Temple of Elemental Evil version of that coming out soon as well.
Currently due April 22nd.
Cool. I actually admit I've not played too many of the Dungeons and Dragons board games. I have played. I really like. It's been a while since I played it. What's the town one?
Oh, Waterdeep.
Yeah, Waterdeep. Lords of Waterdeep. There you go. That's the one I've probably played the most out of all of them, and really enjoyed that. So, but I haven't really played too many of the others. Yeah, except for the classic dungeon. But I played that when I was a kid.
Strangely enough, I've never actually played that one, and it's highly unlikely I'll ever get Dungeon, simply because I think that the board games like the Castle Ravenloft, to me, feel more like the type that I would want to play rather than Dungeon, since I think Dungeon is almost purely random or something like that.
It's been a while since I played it, but yeah, a little bit. It's actually kind of funny because it reminds me a little bit of Munchkin, except, 30 years earlier, 20 years earlier.
But, I never thought about that, but you're actually kind of right. It is. Yeah. It's very Munchkin-like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I never thought of it that way.
I love Munchkin. Munchkin's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, then. Let's head on for a few more questions.
Hey, you didn't ask me what I did this past week.
Oh, sorry. Sorry,
you
didn't write them down here. I guess I assumed you did nothing.
What are you saying about him?
No, it's easy. I'm on my static group on Wayfinder that I'm in. We are running the heroic levels of Orchard of the Macabre. So we ran through Inferno of the Damned. Oh, actually, we did all of them over the last week or so. Everything except for Fleshmakers, which we had done previously. So we got that done. We're looking to probably not run the Abbot Raid Heroic, but we do want to get to Litany of the Dead because of XP. So we're going to be doing that one. I think we have a few more kind of sigil pieces to grab, and then once we do that, then we're going to hit up Litany for a bit. Over on Sarlana, my character, I have a capped character there that I'm just kind of hanging out with until Temple comes out, and so I didn't want to TR that person. I've got a level 26 currently Artificer on Sarlana that I'm looking to TR, and I was going to TR into a Barbarian, but then I played a Barbarian and Wayfinder, so now I think I might want to do a Rogue because of the Rogue goodness that's coming out. So I don't know, maybe my Artificer is going to take a past life and switch over to Rogue here and level up on Sarlana. On Thelanis, I am playing with a static group as well, a semi-static group. And what are we doing there? We ran through Giant Hold. We tried 3-manning a Heroic Reaver and didn't actually make it, but part of that is that 2 of the folks had not been in there before. And so I was the only one that had been in there before. And me leading a Reaver raid. And try to explain it to everyone else. You don't want to do that. But we did okay for a while. But we just eventually just sort of got beat down. Let's see. But then we were also running over and I can't remember now what we were doing over there. Maybe we were doing Orchard on that group too. So and then an Arganesson. I've got besides the Spring Fling group, I've got an Artificer there that I'm looking to cap out ahead of Temple and the rest of the year. And that is a third life Artificer. I probably won't go too many lives beyond that, but I'm going to be level capping that person out. So I've got a cap character on Argo. On Galanda, I'm just doing Lobby stuff, which is because I created that character for the live stream that I want to level up a little bit to use for the live stream. And I think that pretty well takes care of it in terms of what I've played in the past week. So,
all right. One question concerning this is, what is the most past lives you have on a character?
Oh, God, not very many. I'm an altaholic. There's sort of folks who roll up many characters, and there's folks who roll up one character and just go life after life on it. So instead of rolling up, say, a bard, they'll TR their character into a bard. And probably when update 25 comes out here, rather than roll up a new rogue, they'll TR and play their rogue life. That kind of thing. So there are lots of people with many, many, many more lives than I do. But I think the most I have, something like, I'm on my 4th life, and that would be on Sarlana.
All right.
But I have more than a dozen characters with more than 1 life.
Okay, so it's certainly no surprise then that I presume Drac also is that I'm still in my first life with everyone.
Yeah. And, I'm not sure if I want to start doing that. I think I might on one character just to try it because I know everybody talks about it and everybody really seems to enjoy doing the TR because you basically get to enjoy the game more, I suppose.
You get more powerful, too. I mean, there is absolutely a tangible benefit for doing it. Besides the past life feats and that, you get, up to 32 and then 34, 36 point build. So typically when if I have a character that I want to sort of put on the TR cycle, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get up to a 36 point build. I probably am not going to go beyond that, just because I don't. Just me personally, I don't. But I do at least want to get a couple of past lives and 36 points, and typically I'll do that.
Do you have another question from the chat room? Joe Charcerer asked, "What is your favorite class to play?"
Cleric. I like clerics. I've always been a big cleric fan. Although I have to admit, my cleric is although it's hard to say because update 23 Armor Up really made my cleric a lot more powerful. But I really love my swashbuckler right now. Oh man, do I love my swashbuckler. I push buttons and many things die.
That's always good.
Yeah. So maybe my favorite class right now is the Bard. But historically, really over the length of time, it's got to be cleric.
And that was one of your first characters, correct?
Yeah. Well, first was a fighter, second was a cleric. But
okay.
Yes.
Okay, and it looks like we're caught up on questions, so you can go ahead and go on, Pineleaf.
Okay, very well then. Let's head on to donations, if we had any. But if you would like to support DDO Players, simply go to the donations page where you can support the Players Alliance on Patreon. There you will find rewards, including a mention on the DDO Players News, or even be a guest host with us.
Nice. So how much do I owe you? No, I'm kidding. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. We'll discuss that after the
show. Okay.
And as for feedback, we do not have any iTunes reviews, but we would love your support.
That's not actually true. I don't know if you know this, but I gave you a review back on March 14th, and I have yet to hear it read on the show.
Well, I have not seen it.
Yeah?
Well, I will double-check iTunes then. So we do have one. So next week, we might have an iTunes review, if I can find it on iTunes.
See, I wrote it on a Saturday evening, and I was all excited to hear it on Monday, and then you did the one for, I think it was Maximus Flames,
mm-hmm.
And I'm the one after that. And then I was just like, what happened to mine? And then I was like, well, next week. Maybe they just did one a week. The next week came around, you didn't read my my review either.
Well,
so.
I will double check that because I don't remember seeing it, but I will check iTunes. iTunes has been kind of weird lately. So
Lately?
Well, yeah, I'm going to say that's not saying, but saying iTunes has been weird. But so we will definitely check for your review then.
Yeah, well, I have to just say the username in there is actually DDO Cast Host.
Okay.
That's because when I first started doing DDO Cast and registered for iTunes, I wanted to make sure, because I wanted to be able to write as the host of DDO Cast.
Right, which makes sense.
I've never figured out how to change my username since, so that's why it is listed that way.
Well, I will make a note of that.
But it's technically me.
I will definitely look, so hopefully you'll hear that next week, I promise. If it's there.
If it's there. We have a featured comment, though, from Grimord, who left a comment on DDO News episode 25, The Temple of Elemental Coffee. You could count on the damsels to turn a podcast into chaos and giggles.
This is fact.
You can. That is fact.
I guess no one will argue with that one.
Nope, no one's going to argue with that.
Yep.
Yes.
You can move on, finally.
Right. As for emails, we do not have any emails this week, but we would just love you to send us. You can send to us at podcast@ddoplayers.com. Now, Cordovan, is there anything else you would like to add before we close out?
Sure, I could mention a few things. First off, for those who are interested in checking out the Temple of Elemental Evil right now, we do have a Lamania public preview server. It's a separate download, so you have to download the client separately and put in a different installation of that. And it's really a server where we let you level up really quickly and all that sort of thing to test things out. Nothing that you do over there impacts what you do over on the live servers. But if you want to get a little sneak peek at Temple, you can actually do that right now. And our latest build is from last Friday. And we'd love to get some kind of last-minute feedback and all that on it. So you can find out how to find the Lamania public preview server by going to the DDO forums, ddo.com/forum. and you'll see you just do a little digging, you'll find it. The other thing I guess I could mention is we did put out our Update 25 Reign of Elemental Evil sort of one-page preview, and that's on DDO.com. It's DDO.com/classic. That just went out tonight, so a good chance to just kind of get some overview, basically spoiler-free bullet points as to what you can see in Update 25. We have Update 25 coming out on currently planned for April 6th, so should be about that. And as DDO Central mentions in chat, we have a Temple of Elemental Evil trailer that we're hoping to get out this week. There are still a few sort of things we need to deal with before we can actually hit publish on YouTube and upload it and all that. So assuming we get that stuff worked out, we should have it by the middle end of the week. And that's really just kind of a really cool 30-second overview. We're going to be able to do a bunch with this thing, this video as well. Like it can be like a trailer on that when we're released and all that sort of stuff. So that's going to be something coming out this week that's really exciting. Tomorrow, if you like to follow us on Twitter, it's twitter.com/DDO Unlimited. We do Tuesday Turbine Point giveaways. So all you have to do is reply to us, answer our question, and then on Wednesday we pick a bunch of folks to give Turbine Points to. On Wednesday, we have our Update 25 Preview Part 2 on the weekly Wednesday lunchtime live stream. That starts at noon Eastern, -5 GMT on twitch.tv/DDO stream. I'm going to have a guest. I think I'm probably going to rope in Varguil to force him to be on the show with me. And we're going to talk about rogue enhancements in particular. Last week we really focused on the temple, and this week we really want to get on more of the crunchy stuff. That's coming on Update 25. Also, we have some new shows on our Twitch stream as well, so if you want to check that out, you can. We have shows on Thursday and that. And then, like I say, we're all busy because the next week is it. So I think that's a big bullet point. So you can find us on Facebook, Google+, Twitter, Pinterest, Twitch, and DDO.com for all the information that you were looking for.
Thank you very much. So remember, on Tuesday we have the Temple of Elemental Misunderstood, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, he's just, it's an element, right? Elements can't be good or bad. They just are.
Yes, right. Okay, you could contact us at podcast@ddoplayers.com. You could also follow us on Twitter, the Players Alliance @PlayersAlly, DDO Players @DDO Players, Draculetta @Draculetta_72, Pineleaf @Pineleaf Needles, and our guest you could follow at
Jerry Snook @Jerry Snook on Twitter, JerrySnook.
And I will fill all that in on the show notes, so it'll be on the show notes when the episode post. You can see all the places to follow our guest, and also DDO. I'll put all the Facebook pages and Twitch pages and all the in the show notes, and you can just click on them and get to them.
Very well. The Players Alliance has 3 live shows every week. On Mondays at 8:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, we have DDO Players News. On Thursdays at 6:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, we have Guild Wars Players News. And on Saturdays at 8:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, we have Lotro Players News. And you can join us for our live shows at ddoplayers.com/live. That is it, everyone. Thank you for listening. This is Pineleaf Needles reminding you to loot those treasure chests.